Imagine slaving away for 8 years, paying every bill on time, being the perfect neighbor, shelling out $4,800 in HOA fees for that pool alone, just for some power-drunk Karen to decide you don't deserve a single lap. That's what hit me last Tuesday. I'm Marcus, an HVAC tech who swum those 5 a.m. laps every day since 2016 to stay sane after 12-hour shifts in Florida heat and a brutal divorce. Then Karen shows up. Designer sunglasses, fake smile, clipboard of lies, banning me for aggressive behavior I supposedly showed while I was 300 miles away on a job. Security cameras? Conveniently broken during every fake incident. What she didn't know, I'm the guy who services the exact pump that keeps her precious pool running. 48 hours later, it was bone dry. What would you do? Drop your worst HOA story below. Let me tell you how a clipboard-wielding psychopath turned my sanctuary into a battlefield. Willowbrook Commons, 240 townhouses, Olympic-sized heated pool, the kind of middle-class paradise that looked perfect in real estate photos. I'd called it home for 8 years, paid my $185 monthly HOA fees religiously, never caused trouble. Hell, I'd even volunteered for the holiday decorating committee twice. The pool was my religion. Every morning at 5 a.m., 45 laps in 78-degree water before facing another day of crawling through scorching Florida attics. The sound of gentle water lapping against tile edges, that clean chlorine smell mixing with jasmine from the landscaping, pure meditation in liquid form. Then my world exploded in 2021. 18-year marriage disintegrated. Divorce papers, lawyers feeding like vultures on our life savings. Sarah got our dream house, I got this townhouse, and enough debt to choke a horse. Those morning swims transformed from leisure into life support. When you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering how everything went wrong, chlorinated water becomes cheaper than therapy. My routine never changed. Coffee brewing in my empty kitchen, flip-flops slapping concrete as I walked 30 yards to salvation. The early crowd became family. Luis the electrician perfecting his backstroke, Mrs. Patterson doing gentle water aerobics, night shift nurses grabbing quick laps before 12-hour hospital shifts. We were the backbone folks, the people who actually fixed things when they broke, kept the community running while others just wrote checks. Then Karen Whitmore slithered into paradise. Picture a real estate predator disguised as suburban royalty. 52, drives a white BMW X5 like she's conducting a symphony, carries a leather clipboard that might as well be a weapon. Her vanilla perfume was so aggressive it could kill houseplants from 20 feet away. The kind of woman who'd complain about noisy garbage trucks at 6 a.m. while demanding instant service when her AC died. Karen bought the corner unit, biggest, most expensive townhouse, premium lot with extra parking. Within 6 months, she'd politicked her way into HOA president, promising to elevate community standards. Translation, ethnic cleansing for the middle class. Her first board meeting was a masterpiece of passive aggression. I've noticed certain residents using facilities during inappropriate hours, she announced, clipboard clutched like scripture. Perhaps we need quiet hours to maintain family-friendly environments. Luis raised his hand. Some of us work construction. We can't swim at noon. Karen's smile could have frozen helium. Maybe it's time residents adjusted their schedules to match community expectations. The metallic taste of bullshit filled that stuffy clubhouse air. But Karen was playing chess while we were playing checkers. Her real estate business was exploding, and she'd started marketing Willowbrook with phrases like exclusive community standards and carefully curated resident demographics. She was literally selling houses by promising to keep people like us out. 6 months ago, her campaign escalated. Security cameras began mysteriously malfunctioning whenever working-class residents were around. Janet the plumber got cited for inappropriate swimwear, her modest one-piece versus Karen's barely legal designer bikinis. Luis faced excessive splashing violations during his silent backstroke routine. Each complaint looked official, had timestamps, followed procedures perfectly. Karen was building airtight cases against every blue-collar resident, one fabricated violation at a time. The pool bylaws seemed ironclad, equal access for all homeowners in good standing. But Karen had found loopholes in human decency that no lawyer ever anticipated. Then came that Tuesday morning. I'm walking to my usual salvation, and the gate's padlocked. Karen emerges from the shadows like some horror movie villain, flanked by a bored security guard who clearly questioned his life choices. Marcus Rivera, you're permanently banned from pool facilities. Standing there in swim trunks, brain still booting up, I managed. For what? She handed me this laminated document listing multiple violations for aggressive behavior and family intimidation. Every incident allegedly happened while I was 3 states away fixing a children's hospital's HVAC system. Karen had just made the biggest mistake of her perfectly manicured life. The morning after my ban, Karen launched her character assassination campaign with the subtlety of a nuclear bomb. I wake up to find this passive-aggressive masterpiece taped to every single mailbox in the complex. Urgent. Recent pool incidents require enhanced safety protocols. Management is reviewing policies to ensure family-friendly environments for all residents. She didn't name me directly, but she might as well have hired a skywriter to circle the neighborhood with my mugshot attached. Then came the paperwork avalanche that would make federal bureaucrats weep with envy. Karen filed a formal complaint with Pinnacle Property Solutions, our management company, complete with a meticulously crafted 6-month incident log that read like Stephen King's pool-based horror novel. 23 separate violations, each more creatively fabricated than the last. According to her best-selling fiction, I'd been running a systematic reign of terror against innocent families just trying to enjoy peaceful morning swims. Here's where 20 years of HVAC work pays off in completely unexpected ways. When you service commercial buildings and hospital systems, documentation isn't just recommended. It's absolutely mandatory for insurance coverage and liability protection. GPS timestamps, customer signatures, photo evidence of every repair, detailed service logs. I'd learned this lesson the hard way during my military reserve days when sloppy paperwork nearly cost me a security clearance and taught me that meticulous details literally save careers and reputations. I pulled my comprehensive service records and nearly choked on my morning coffee in complete disbelief. Karen claimed I was aggressively intimidating families on Tuesday, March 15th at exactly 2:30 p.m. My GPS tracking system showed me 300 miles away in Jacksonville, replacing critical evaporator coils in a children's hospital's intensive care unit. Her detailed eyewitness statements described violent pool incidents that allegedly happened while I was literally on my knees fixing life-saving air conditioning systems for sick kids. This woman had turned pathological lying into Academy Award-worthy performance art. Time to fight her elaborate fiction with cold, documented facts. The beauty of Florida's government in the Sunshine Laws hit me like divine inspiration, something I'd learned about years ago during a particularly nasty contractor dispute that taught me public records are incredibly powerful legal weapons. HOA records are public property, whether clipboard-wielding board presidents like it or not. I filed my formal records request, paid the mandatory $47 copying fee, and settled in to wait for Karen's carefully hidden secrets to arrive by certified mail. What showed up 3 business days later made my hands tremble with pure, concentrated rage. Karen had systematically filed complaints against 8 different residents in just 12 months. The musty smell of fresh photocopies and bureaucratic ink filled my entire kitchen as I spread the damning evidence across my table like crime scene photographs. Luis got officially cited for excessive noise during maintenance activities. His heinous crime? Quietly skimming fallen leaves from the pool surface at dawn. Janet faced serious violations for improper facility usage after committing the unforgivable sin of helping elderly Mrs. Patterson adjust her inflatable pool float. Tommy the landscaper was formally written up for intimidating behavior and aggressive conduct because he'd politely asked Karen to temporarily move her white BMW so he could properly trim overgrown hedges around the community mailboxes. The discriminatory pattern was crystal clear as chlorinated pool water. Every single target was working-class blue-collar. Absolutely zero complaints against the investment banker in Unit 47 whose weekend parties consistently rattled windows until 3 a.m. and regularly left empty beer bottles floating in the community pool. Nothing whatsoever about the real estate attorney who'd been illegally parking his massive boat trailer across 3 designated guest spaces since Christmas, completely blocking access for visitors and emergency vehicles. Just us, the people who actually built, maintained, and fixed everything that made this community function properly. But buried deep in that bureaucratic paperwork mountain was pure liquid gold that made my pulse race with anticipation. Karen had been systematically using the HOA's official email system for her expanding personal real estate empire. Client communications, commission negotiations, property listing coordination, private showing schedules, all flowing through community servers that we residents paid for with our monthly dues. The metallic taste of victory flooded my mouth as I methodically screenshot every single violation. Then I discovered the smoking gun that would change everything forever. Hidden in routine contract renewal documents was an official bid from Whitmore Realty Group to completely replace Pinnacle as our management company when their current contract expired in exactly 60 days. Karen was literally orchestrating an elaborate plan to fire our current managers so she could hire herself and personally control a $500,000 annual operating budget. The conflict of interest was so massive it needed its own weather system. That evening, Luis appeared at my door with cold beer and a manila folder thick enough to stop bullets. "We need to talk," he said seriously. "Janet's bringing backup and more evidence." We spent 4 hours mapping Karen's discrimination empire like military strategists planning invasion. By midnight, we'd identified her fatal flaw. She'd assumed blue-collar workers were too stupid to fight back with proper documentation. What she didn't realize, HVAC techs spend every day diagnosing systems that look perfect but are completely broken underneath. And I just found the critical failure point in her empire. Karen wasn't about to let some lowly contractor challenge her authority. She went nuclear faster than a blown fuse. The next morning, I'm drinking coffee when I see a city code enforcement officer measuring my HVAC fan with a tape measure. The metallic clicking sound of his equipment echoed off the concrete like a countdown timer. "Sorry, buddy," he said, genuinely apologetic. "Got a complaint about commercial vehicle violations. Lady says you're running an illegal business operation from residential property. Never mind that I'd parked in the same spot for 8 years without issue. The citation would cost me $300 and a court date to fight." Karen was weaponizing municipal bureaucracy against me, but that was just her opening salvo. 2 days later, she announced a comprehensive pool safety inspection conducted by her cousin Rick, whose only qualification was owning a clipboard and sharing Karen's DNA. This unlicensed expert spent hours photographing drain covers, testing pH with expired strips, and manufacturing problems from thin air. The chlorine smell that used to calm me now triggered pure rage as I watched this charade unfold. Karen presented Rick's findings at an emergency board meeting. According to his professional opinion, our perfectly functioning pool needed $45,000 in immediate upgrades. Coincidentally, that matched exactly what Karen's management company would charge for emergency renovations. But her most insidious move was proposing new character reference requirements for pool access. Any resident-facing violations would need 3 written references from established community members. Since she'd already poisoned half the neighborhood against blue-collar workers, this was a permanent ban disguised as due process. The bitter taste of corruption hung in the recycled air of every board meeting. That's when Karen got sloppy and handed me everything I needed. I started documenting her surveillance campaign with my phone. Karen photographing residents' vehicles, measuring property lines, conducting mysterious late-night clubhouse meetings with her wealthy supporters. The woman couldn't resist documenting her own discrimination. Janet, God bless her investigative instincts, had been screenshotting Karen's social media posts about maintaining standards. The woman was addicted to bragging about her crusade. Photos of Luis's work truck with captions like, "Certain residents don't understand professional appearances." Pictures of Janet's Honda with comments about lowering property values. But the smoking gun was Karen's private Facebook group, Willowbrook Quality Control. Restricted to wealthy residents, the conversations were discrimination lawyers' wet dreams. Posts about the contractor problem, strategies for maintaining demographic standards, and detailed planning sessions for encouraging relocations of certain elements. Reading those screenshots felt like finding buried treasure made of pure justice. During this research phase, I connected with Marcus Thompson, who owns the largest HVAC supply company in the county. Turns out Karen had been blacklisting contractors to potential homebuyers, claiming we were unreliable and unprofessional. "She's been poisoned for working people," Marcus told me over beers. Time someone fought back with her own methods. That conversation opened doors to the broader contractor network. Word travels fast when someone targets blue-collar workers. Electricians, plumbers, landscapers, we all started sharing Karen horror stories and developing countermeasures. The smell of diesel fuel and honest sweat at contractor meetups became the scent of organized resistance. Then Janet made a discovery that changed everything. Her plumber instincts led her to research Karen's credentials through the state licensing board. Here's something most people don't know. Real estate licenses require continuing education credits that are meticulously tracked. Miss your requirements, and you're operating illegally. Karen's records showed completion of programs that didn't match state databases. Her renewal applications contained discrepancies suggesting falsified documentation. The woman demanding everyone else meet impossible standards might not even be qualified for her own job. But Luis delivered the kill shot during our evening strategy session. "Talk to the guy who installed our security cameras," he said, cracking open a beer. "Those systems don't just malfunction randomly. Someone's been manually disabling them during specific time frames." The humid evening air suddenly felt electric with possibility. Karen hadn't been dealing with convenient technical failures. She'd been actively sabotaging evidence. Every malfunctioned camera corresponded exactly with her fabricated incident reports. We now had documentation fraud, resource misuse, conflict of interest, discrimination, and evidence tampering. Karen's empire of corruption was ready to collapse under its own weight. But she still controlled the board and the immediate narrative. Legal complaints would take months to resolve, and Karen could do massive damage in the meantime. We needed something that would instantly shift the power dynamic. That's when the solution hit me like perfectly balanced pool chemistry. Clear, simple, and absolutely devastating. Karen's desperation was showing, and desperate people make catastrophic mistakes. Her latest nuclear option arrived as Enhanced Community Security Services, a private patrol company owned by her brother-in-law. These wannabe cops started prowling Willowbrook in marked vehicles, specifically targeting anyone who looked like they owned a tool belt. The crunch of gravel under security tires became the soundtrack of systematic harassment. I'm loading my truck at 5:30 a.m. when this rent-a-cop blocks my driveway. Sir, we've received reports of suspicious activity around your vehicle. Suspicious activity? I'm going to work. Need to verify you're authorized for commercial equipment on residential property. The absurdity was breathtaking. I was being interrogated for the crime of having a job in my own neighborhood. But Karen's nuclear option was attempting to lien my property for unpaid fines from her fabricated violations. She'd calculated every bogus citation as $50, creating an $1,100 bill threatening foreclosure. The certified mail envelope reeked of expensive legal stationery and Karen's aggressive vanilla perfume. Inside was an official notice demanding immediate payment or facing property seizure. That crossed the line from harassment into financial terrorism, but Karen had finally pushed the wrong button on the wrong person. That evening, Bill Whitmore appeared at my door looking like he'd aged 20 years. His hands shook as he clutched a manila folder, the weight of guilt evident in his slumped shoulders. I can't watch this anymore, he whispered. Karen's completely lost her mind, and I won't be part of destroying innocent people. The humid air carried the scent of his fear sweat mixed with evening jasmine. Bill revealed Karen had been systematically embezzling from HOA petty cash, $20 or $30 at a time, but consistent theft over 2 years. She'd been funding her discrimination campaign with community money, paying for research and documentation that was actually organized harassment. She thinks she's building some exclusive empire, Bill continued, voice cracking. But she's destroying our marriage and poisoning our community. He handed me Karen's private communications showing explicit discriminatory intent, text messages with real estate partners about demographic cleanup, email chains planning systematic removal of undesirable elements. The evidence was so damning it practically hummed with radioactive justice. But Bill's next revelation changed everything. Karen's business is hemorrhaging money. 3 major deals fell through when clients discovered her harassment reputation. She's desperate for the management contract because her agency is bleeding cash. Then came the bombshell that made my pulse race. The pool equipment is failing, Bill whispered conspiratorially. Karen's been hiding maintenance reports to avoid special assessments that would hurt her property listings. The circulation system needs major repairs, but she won't authorize them because residents would have to pay right before she's trying to sell new units. My HVAC expertise clicked into overdrive. Pool circulation systems are essentially large-scale liquid cooling units, pumps, filters, chemical balance controls. If current equipment was failing, health codes would force pool closure until repairs, and whoever controlled replacement equipment would control pool operations entirely. The night air suddenly tasted electric with possibility. Meanwhile, Karen escalated her smear campaign beyond all reason. Anonymous flyers appeared claiming I was potentially violent and mentally unstable. She told neighbors my divorce resulted from domestic violence and that I'd been stalking families. The lies were so outrageous they actually helped. People who knew me realized Karen had completely detached from reality. Her most desperate move came when she offered the security guard $500 cash to file false reports about threatening behavior from my coalition. Lady's trying to pay me to lie about you threatening me, the guard told me, producing his phone recording. I got kids to feed, but I ain't gonna perjure myself for nobody. That recording joined my growing evidence collection. By now, local reporter Amanda Bellamy was investigating after multiple discrimination complaints. Karen's narrative control attempts were backfiring spectacularly as residents shared harassment stories. The rhythmic clicking of Amanda's keyboard during our interview sounded like justice being documented in real time. We had financial fraud, attempted bribery, discrimination, evidence tampering, and systematic harassment documented. But Karen still controlled enough board votes to maintain power. That's when Eddie Kozlowski called with an offer that felt like divine intervention. Heard through the contractor network you might be interested in pool equipment business, the Aquaflow systems owner said. My contract expires next month, and honestly, I'm exhausted dealing with that psychotic woman. She's been threatening to sue me over perfectly functioning equipment just to create problems. Eddie was willing to sell his pumps, filters, and monitoring systems for $28,000. With my HVAC credentials and business license, I could easily qualify as certified pool equipment vendor. The taste of chlorinated victory flooded my mouth. Once I owned the water circulation system, Karen would lose her primary control mechanism. The community would negotiate with me for pool operations, and I'd control the exact thing she'd been using to terrorize everyone. Time to give Karen a masterclass in how complex systems actually work. That sleepless Tuesday night changed everything. I found myself in the county clerk's basement at 2 a.m., fueled by gas station coffee that tasted like liquid desperation, scrolling through decades of municipal contracts on a computer older than my divorce. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps overhead, but I couldn't stop digging. That's when I hit pure gold that made my hands shake with excitement. Willowbrook's pool water circulation system wasn't owned by our HOA. It was leased from Aquaflow Systems under a private contractor agreement. The current contract expired in exactly 28 days, and renewal required county health department approval, proof of insurance, and proper contractor licensing. The implications hit me like a freight train loaded with justice. Without Aquaflow's equipment, our pool couldn't legally operate. Period. Insurance liability, health code compliance, safety regulations, everything depended on having a certified water circulation contractor. No contractor meant no pool, which meant Karen's primary weapon would simply evaporate into chlorinated mist. But here's where my HVAC background became a secret superpower that even I hadn't fully appreciated. Pool circulation systems are identical to large commercial cooling units, industrial pumps, filtration networks, chemical monitoring systems. I'd been installing this exact equipment in hospitals and hotels for 20 years. The state would absolutely approve my company as certified pool contractor, especially since I already held the necessary licensing and insurance requirements. The musty basement air suddenly smelled like victory mixed with old paper and infinite possibility. I called Eddie Kozlowski at dawn, catching him loading his truck for morning service calls. "Eddie, it's Marcus from Willowbrook. That conversation about selling your contract, how serious were you?" His laugh was rough with cigarette damage and pure exhaustion. "Marcus, let me paint you a picture. Yesterday, Karen called me at 5 a.m. claiming my defective equipment was causing algae problems. I drive over there, test everything, chemistry perfect, circulation optimal, filters clean. You know what the problem was? Someone had dumped a bottle of suntan lotion directly into the skimmer basket. The frustration in his gravelly voice was palpable through my phone speaker. "I've been in pool service 35 years, son. Never encountered anyone like that woman. She's turned routine maintenance into psychological warfare. Last week she threatened to sue me because the pool water was too clear, claimed it was unnatural and possibly dangerous." Eddie laid out the deal. $28,000 for pumps, filters, monitoring systems, chemical supplies, and complete contract transfer. He'd handle health department approvals and insurance transitions. His business credit would even help establish my pool service company with suppliers. Plus, you being HVAC means you understand this equipment better than most pool contractors, he added with satisfaction. These systems are basically water cooling units with chemistry sets attached. The rough plastic of my phone felt electric against my sweaty palm. But the real power shift would be psychological, not just mechanical. Karen had built her entire control empire around denying access to something she didn't actually own, operate, or understand. She'd been wielding the pool like a weapon while remaining completely ignorant about how it functioned. The woman demanding technical perfection from everyone else couldn't even read a pH strip correctly. Eddie confirmed Bill's revelation about needed upgrades. System works fine, but it's aging. Pumps from 2015, filters need replacement. Monitoring equipment's outdated. I've recommended improvements for months, but Princess Karen blocks anything requiring resident payments. Once I owned the equipment, I could modernize everything with energy-efficient upgrades that would actually save the HOA money while delivering superior water quality. Karen's iron grip on pool access would become my competitive advantage through professional competence. The morning sun streaming through dirty basement windows felt like divine approval as Eddie and I finalized details electronically. Purchase agreement signed, equipment inspection scheduled for Friday morning, contract transfer paperwork submitted to health department that same afternoon. In 72 hours, I'd own the exact system Karen had been using to terrorize our community. But the beautiful irony ran even deeper than equipment ownership. Karen's entire discrimination campaign was built on the assumption that blue-collar workers lacked the sophistication to challenge her authority. She'd systematically underestimated the problem-solving skills, professional networks, and technical expertise of the people she'd targeted. What she'd failed to understand: HVAC technicians are professional systems thinkers who diagnose complex problems for a living. We find elegant solutions to impossible challenges. We understand how interconnected components create desired outcomes. And I just identified the single critical failure point in Karen's seemingly perfect discrimination machine. The metallic taste of chlorinated victory filled my mouth as I drove home that morning, knowing that within days, Karen Whitmore would learn what happens when someone who actually understands systems decides to school her about power, control, and the career-ending consequences of underestimating working people. The next 72 hours became the most intense crash course in guerrilla warfare disguised as pool maintenance education. Thursday evening, my kitchen transformed into Mission Control headquarters. Luis arrived with electrical diagrams and a toolbox that sounded like a medieval armory when he dropped it on my tile floor. Pool pumps run on 220-volt dedicated circuits, he explained, spreading schematics across my table. Current wiring's legal, but we can upgrade efficiency and cut operating costs by 40%. The sharp smell of his industrial coffee mixed with the metallic scent of wire strippers as we planned electrical improvements that would make Karen's expensive maintenance claims look ridiculous. Janet showed up with plumbing expertise and municipal codes thick enough to stop bullets. Water circulation must meet specific flow rates, she said, highlighting regulations with a yellow marker that squeaked against paper. But there's flexibility in filtration that could improve quality while slashing chemical costs. The scratchy sound of highlighters became our war paint preparation. Bill Whitmore joined us later, bringing intelligence about Karen's increasingly unhinged board strategies. She's planning another emergency assessment for enhanced security measures, he whispered conspiratorially. Basically wants to tax residents to fund her personal harassment campaign. His guilt-ridden confession tasted like bitter coffee mixed with overdue justice. Friday morning, Eddie Kozlowski became my sensei in the ancient art of pool chemistry warfare. His warehouse smelled like chlorine and decades of honest work, while industrial pumps hummed their mechanical mantras of reliability. Pool operation looks simple, but it's professional-grade chemistry, Eddie explained, demonstrating pH testing with the precision of a laboratory scientist. Health inspectors are documentation Nazis. Every test, every chemical addition, every maintenance activity gets logged or you're shut down. The waterproof logbooks felt like holding weapons-grade bureaucracy in my calloused hands. But the real game changer came during my consultation with attorney Sarah Bellamy, Amanda, the reporter's sister, who specialized in HOA law and had been following our discrimination saga with professional fascination. "What you're planning is legally brilliant," Sarah said, her law office smelling like expensive coffee and impending victory. "By controlling essential infrastructure, you force the HOA into legitimate negotiations. They literally cannot operate without your services." The taste of her quality coffee was like liquid legal ammunition. Sarah helped structure Reliable Pool Solutions LLC with bulletproof licensing and insurance protection. The fresh ink smell of business documents felt like armor against Karen's future legal tantrums. "Here's the beautiful part," Sarah explained, stamping official papers. "You're not seeking revenge. You're establishing professional standards. When Karen tries to negotiate, you maintain strict business ethics. No discrimination, no harassment, equal service for all residents." The irony was so perfect it should have been illegal. Meanwhile, Eddie was teaching me pool chemistry with the intensity of someone training a bomb disposal expert. "Water balance is rocket science with consequences," he said, demonstrating precise chemical measurements. pH, alkalinity, chlorine, calcium hardness. Mess up one element and you've got lawsuit-worthy algae blooms. The precision reminded me of refrigerant pressures and electrical loads, complex systems requiring expertise that Karen had been treating like magic. Sunday brought equipment inspection that felt like inheriting a small industrial empire. Pumps, filters, heaters, chemical feeders, monitoring systems. 8 years of Eddie's professional pride laid out like treasure. "This equipment's worth $60,000 retail," Eddie told me, cigarette smoke mixing with the industrial smell of pool machinery. "I'm practically giving it away because I respect your fight and I'm exhausted by that woman's psychological terrorism." The mechanical hum of properly functioning equipment sounded like the heartbeat of impending justice. Our final strategy session felt like generals planning D-Day invasion, contingency plans for every possible Karen reaction. Legal injunctions if she blocked contract transfer, security cameras if she attempted sabotage, media exposure if harassment escalated. "Remember," Sarah emphasized as evening mosquitoes buzzed around my patio lights, "you're not the villain in this story. You're demonstrating the professional integrity Karen claims to defend." Tuesday morning arrived with humid Florida weight and electric anticipation. Eddie and I completed contract transfer at the county health department, where the bureaucratic smell of government offices mixed with the sweet scent of official approval. Marcus Rivera, Reliable Pool Solutions, the inspector announced, stamping documents with metallic authority. License current, insurance adequate, equipment approved, contract transferred effective immediately. That stamp sounded like a judge's gavel pronouncing sentence. By noon, I legally owned every pump, filter, and chemical system keeping Willowbrook's pool operational. Karen's primary weapon had just changed hands, and she remained blissfully ignorant of the approaching storm. That afternoon, I installed new energy-efficient pumps that hummed quietly compared to the old equipment's mechanical groaning. The improved circulation was immediately obvious, water clearer and more inviting than it had been in years. Residents noticed before Karen realized what happened. "Pool looks incredible today," Mrs. Patterson commented as I finished chemical testing. "Water feels like silk." The sweet taste of professional competence beat any revenge fantasy. By evening, everything was positioned for Karen's education in how complex systems function when operated by people who actually understand them. The chlorine smell that used to trigger rage now smelled like victory with a pH balance of pure justice. Karen returned from her Orlando real estate conference Thursday morning like a shark sensing blood in unfamiliar waters. Something was wrong in her perfect little kingdom, and her predator instincts were screaming warnings she couldn't yet identify. The first sign of panic came when she called an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. I watched from my kitchen window as she paced the clubhouse patio, designer heels clicking against concrete like a nervous machine gun, phone pressed to her ear with the desperation of someone whose world was collapsing. "I don't care what any contract says," her voice carried across the courtyard with shrill authority. "Terminate Aquaflow immediately and hire Atlantic Pool Services. We need complete management changes before this weekend." The bitter taste of her growing desperation was almost as satisfying as perfectly balanced pool chemistry. But Karen had returned exactly 3 days too late to stop the inevitable. The contract transfer was legally binding, county-approved, and completely beyond her authority to reverse. I now owned and operated every pump, filter, and chemical system she'd been wielding as her weapon of neighborhood control. Her discovery came Friday morning in the most cinematically perfect way possible. I'm testing water chemistry at dawn when Karen storms toward the pool area, clipboard clutched like a medieval battle axe. Vanilla perfume so aggressive it could strip paint from concrete and kill small birds. "What the hell are you doing here?" she demanded, voice hitting frequencies that could shatter glass. "You're permanently banned from this facility by official board order." "Actually, Karen, I'm performing routine maintenance as the certified pool contractor." I held up my official health department credentials with the satisfaction of someone playing a royal flush. Reliable Pool Solutions is now responsible for all water circulation systems and chemical balance management. The color drained from her face faster than water through a catastrophically broken filtration system. "That's completely impossible," she sputtered, grabbing my paperwork with hands that shook like autumn leaves. "I never authorized any contractor changes. This has to be fraud or theft or something illegal." The Aquaflow contract expired Tuesday. They transferred operations to my company with full county approval and official HOA management notification. The sound of her hyperventilating, mixed with the gentle, efficient hum of my new energy-saving pumps, created a symphony of poetic justice that would have made Beethoven weep. Karen immediately called Pinnacle Property Management, screaming into her phone about unauthorized contractors and illegal equipment seizure, loud enough for 3 neighboring communities to hear her complete psychological meltdown. "I don't give a damn what your paperwork claims," she shrieked like a banshee with administrative authority. "Fire them immediately and hire someone I actually approve of." But Pinnacle's response was swift, professional, and legally bulletproof. The contract transfer was properly documented, fully compliant with health regulations, and completely binding. Karen had zero authority to terminate contracted services without board majority vote and 60-day advance notice. Her face turned the exact color of dangerously overchlorinated water. That's when Karen's desperation reached weapons-grade nuclear levels. She called the county health department claiming serious safety violations and demanding immediate emergency inspection of my equipment. Inspector Rodriguez arrived Monday morning, finding everything not just compliant, but dramatically improved over the previous system. "Water quality's exceptional," he told Karen as she hovered nearby like an agitated helicopter parent. "Chemical balance perfect, circulation optimal, filtration significantly upgraded. This is honestly some of the finest pool maintenance I've encountered in 15 years of inspections." Karen's frustrated shriek could have summoned marine life from the Atlantic Ocean. Next, she tried claiming my business wasn't properly licensed, demanding proof of certification, insurance, and contractor registration with the confidence of someone who'd never actually read business law. I handed her a folder containing every document she'd requested, each one officially stamped and completely legitimate. The smell of her fear-induced perspiration was becoming noticeable even over the strong chlorine. But Karen's most desperately stupid move came when she attempted to drain the entire pool to prevent me from controlling the community's water supply. I arrived Tuesday morning to find her standing next to the main drain valve with a wrench, looking like someone trying to defuse a nuclear device with kitchen utensils and pure determination. "If I drain all the water, you can't control anything," she announced with the misguided confidence of someone who'd never operated anything more complex than a designer clipboard. "Karen, if you drain that pool without proper equipment shutdown procedures, you'll crack the concrete foundation from hydrostatic pressure release. Repair costs would exceed $40,000, plus massive liability for anyone injured when the deck structure collapses." She froze with the wrench halfway to the valve, finally realizing she was about to commit accidental vandalism that would financially devastate the entire HOA. Luis arrived just in time to cut electrical power to the drainage system, preventing Karen from transforming our community pool into the world's most expensive concrete crater. "Lady almost turned our swimming pool into a $40,000 sinkhole," Luis announced to the growing crowd of residents who'd gathered to witness this spectacular display of administrative incompetence. The taste of secondhand embarrassment filled the thick, humid Florida air. By Wednesday, Karen's support network was collapsing faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Board treasurer Jennifer Martinez resigned after discovering Karen's systematic petty cash embezzlement. The security company terminated their contract after Karen demanded they arrest me for criminal trespassing while performing legitimate county-mandated maintenance duties. Even her closest real estate partners were publicly distancing themselves from her increasingly unhinged behavior. Thursday brought the ultimate humiliation, Karen physically blocking my access to the equipment room, claiming I was stealing community property through illegal occupation. "This is breaking and entering," she screamed, standing in front of the pump house door like a deranged security guard protecting national secrets. The police officer who responded to her hysterical 911 call took one look at my legal documentation and politely suggested Karen might benefit from consulting an attorney about the fundamental difference between legitimate business contracts and criminal activity. The sound of her sputtering indignation mixed with the efficient mechanical hum of professionally maintained pool equipment was pure auditory satisfaction. By week's end, Karen's transformation from neighborhood dictator to pool area lunatic was complete and obvious to everyone. She'd been reduced to ranting about imaginary conspiracies while I calmly delivered the best pool maintenance service residents had ever experienced. The water had never been clearer, the chemical balance never more perfect, and Karen's authority never more completely evaporated. Karen's final desperate gambit arrived like a political suicide bomb wrapped in democracy. She called for a special election to remove the entire HOA board, claiming current leadership was compromised by criminal elements and infiltrated by outside agitators. Her campaign consultant, a slick political operative who specialized in divisive local races, plastered Willowbrook with professionally designed materials promising to restore law and order. The glossy campaign flyers smelled like expensive desperation and thinly veiled racism. Karen's war chest was mysteriously well-funded for a local HOA election. Professional yard signs, targeted mailers, even robocalls warning about dangerous elements threatening family safety. Someone was spending serious money to eliminate blue-collar residents from our community. Her rallies in the clubhouse felt like Klan meetings with better catering. "We must protect our children from these aggressive individuals," Karen announced to her core supporters, voice dripping with false maternal concern. "Certain people have demonstrated they don't share our community values or understand appropriate behavior." The bitter taste of barely disguised discrimination filled the recycled air. But Karen fatally underestimated our organizational capabilities. Luis had been quietly building our coalition for months through the contractor network, a surprisingly sophisticated communication system spanning multiple trades and communities. Electricians, plumbers, landscapers, HVAC techs, plus their families, friends, and neighbors who appreciated honest work over entitled harassment. Our campaign headquarters was my backyard, where evening barbecue smoke mixed with the sweet scent of grassroots democracy. "She thinks blue-collar means blue brain," Janet said, updating voter registration lists with military precision. Time to educate this woman about working-class intelligence and organization. The rough texture of voter contact sheets felt like holding weapons of democratic warfare. Karen's campaign tactics became increasingly desperate and revealing. Anonymous flyers appeared claiming I was a violent felon with restraining orders. Easily disproven lies that exposed her willingness to commit libel. Social media posts suggested Luis was involved with drug trafficking because his work truck had been spotted in certain neighborhoods. The desperation stank worse than over-chlorinated pool water. Her most revealing move was hiring former police detective Rick Morrison to investigate our criminal conspiracy. This ex-cop spent 2 weeks following our coalition members, photographing license plates and interviewing neighbors about our suspicious activities. Morrison quit after discovering we were boringly law-abiding citizens whose only crime was effective political organizing. Ladies paying me to investigate people for attending community meetings and maintaining swimming pools, he told Luis privately. I got professional ethics. But Karen's nuclear option was attempting systematic bribery of remaining board members. She offered current treasurer Jennifer Martinez a guaranteed $50,000 real estate commission to vote for terminating my pool contract. When Jennifer refused and reported the bribery attempt, Karen threatened to destroy her credit rating and employment prospects. Bill Whitmore recorded these conversations with the dedication of someone building a divorce case, which he absolutely was. Karen's promising board members lucrative real estate deals in exchange for votes, Bill revealed during our evening strategy session. When they refuse, she threatens financial retaliation through her business connections. The metallic taste of corruption was so thick it coated your teeth. Meanwhile, Amanda Bellamy's investigation was exposing Karen's broader pattern of abuse. Her newspaper series HOA Horror Stories featured our discrimination case as the centerpiece of county-wide problems with unaccountable community governance. Karen's attempts to control media narrative were backfiring as more victims shared their experiences. This represents systematic abuse of minor authority, Amanda wrote. Residents deserve protection from petty tyrants who weaponize homeowner association power. The sound of truth being published felt like democracy functioning exactly as designed. But the revelation that changed everything came from Bill's divorce attorney during asset discovery proceedings. Karen's real estate empire was collapsing faster than a house built on quicksand. 3 major development deals had imploded when clients discovered her reputation for neighborhood harassment. Her agency carried massive debt, with the HOA management contract representing her only chance for financial survival. She's fighting for her economic life, the attorney explained. Losing HOA control means probable bankruptcy within 6 months. The humid evening air suddenly felt electric with the scent of approaching victory. Our campaign focused on transparency and concrete results rather than personal attacks. We published detailed analyses showing how my pool management had reduced costs while improving service quality. Monthly statements proved residents were saving money under professional management. Karen's rhetoric devolved into increasingly unhinged claims about communist infiltration and criminal takeover that made her sound like a paranoid conspiracy theorist rather than legitimate community leader. The contrast was politically devastating, but Karen wasn't finished fighting dirty. 3 days before the election, she called an emergency board meeting to authorize enhanced security measures, essentially martial law for Willowbrook. Private security patrols, mandatory ID checks for pool access, restrictions on gathering activities that would effectively ban our campaign meetings. The police officer who responded to residents' complaints took one look at Karen's proposed security protocols and suggested she might want legal advice about constitutional rights and local ordinances. Election morning arrived with the weight of Florida humidity and electric anticipation of Democratic judgment. Karen had hired poll watchers, intimidating men in suits who photographed residents arriving to vote. But her intimidation tactics backfired spectacularly as news cameras documented the harassment for evening broadcasts. By noon, voter turnout was unprecedented. By evening, the results constituted complete repudiation of Karen's leadership and methods. Her entire slate lost by margins that political scientists would later call historically decisive for local elections. But the real victory wasn't just defeating Karen. It was proving that working people could organize, fight back, and win against systematic discrimination. The taste of chlorinated victory mixed with evening jasmine as our community celebrated democracy functioning exactly as intended. Karen's empire of harassment had been demolished by the very people she'd tried to eliminate. The community meeting from hell was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Thursday that felt like Judgment Day, wrapped in Florida humidity. Karen had called this emergency session, expecting home field advantage in the clubhouse she'd controlled for 3 years. What she got instead was the largest HOA meeting attendance in Willowbrook history, standing room only, with overflow crowds spilling onto the pool deck and local news crews setting up cameras. The smell of anticipation mixed with chlorine and Karen's increasingly desperate vanilla perfume created an olfactory cocktail of impending justice. I arrived with my legal documentation, Eddie Kozlowski as my technical expert, and attorney Sarah Bellamy, ready for whatever nuclear option Karen might deploy. The local police had sent Officer Martinez as community liaison, really there to prevent violence when Karen's world finally collapsed. The clubhouse felt electric with tension as residents filed in, choosing sides with the deliberation of people attending a public execution. Karen entered like a deposed dictator making her final stand, designer clipboard clutched with white-knuckled desperation, flanked by her remaining 2 supporters, an expensive-looking attorney who clearly wished he was anywhere else. "Ladies and gentlemen," Karen began, voice shaking with barely controlled rage, "we're here to address the illegal takeover of our community by outside agitators who threaten everything we've built." The bitter taste of her delusion hung in the recycled air like toxic fog. She demanded my immediate removal from all community responsibilities, claiming pool operation was a safety hazard under my management, despite health department records proving the opposite. She accused me of intimidating residents and lowering property values through my mere presence in the neighborhood. "This man has systematically undermined our community's standards," Karen declared, pointing at me with the dramatic flair of someone prosecuting war crimes. "He represents everything wrong with declining neighborhood quality." Murmurs of disgust rippled through the crowd as residents recognized the discriminatory undertones of her accusations. When Karen finally paused for breath, I requested permission to address her factual inaccuracies with documentation. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore," I said calmly, standing to address the packed room. "I'd like to present actual evidence rather than inflammatory rhetoric." The rustle of papers being distributed sounded like democracy in action. I produced health department inspection reports showing dramatic improvements in pool water quality under my management, financial statements proving cost reductions that saved every resident money, testimonials from multiple families praising professional service and community improvements. "These documents speak louder than accusations," I said, maintaining respectful tone despite Karen's increasingly hostile interruptions. That's when Bill Whitmore stood up with his box of evidence, looking like a man finally ready to confess years of accumulated guilt. "I can't stay silent anymore," Bill announced, his voice carrying the weight of overdue honesty. "Karen has been systematically discriminating against working-class residents while embezzling community funds for personal use." The shocked gasps were audible as Bill began playing audio recordings of Karen making explicitly discriminatory comments about cleaning up neighborhood demographics and removing certain elements from community facilities. Karen's face went through color changes that would have impressed a chameleon. "Those recordings are illegal," she shrieked, losing all pretense of professional composure. "He had no right to document private conversations." "Actually," Attorney Bellamy interjected smoothly, "Florida is a one-party consent state. Mr. Whitmore was legally entitled to record conversations he participated in." But the evidence bomb that destroyed Karen's credibility came when Bill produced financial audit documents showing $3,400 in unexplained petty cash withdrawals over 2 years, all coinciding with Karen's harassment campaigns against blue-collar residents. Officer Martinez became very interested in the financial documentation, taking notes with the diligence of someone building a criminal case. The community voices that joined our cause created a chorus of long-suppressed truth. Luis stood up and described the systematic harassment campaign targeting Hispanic residents. Janet detailed discriminatory enforcement that specifically targeted women contractors. Mrs. Patterson revealed Karen's threats about cleaning up the community through selective rule enforcement. "This woman has been poisoning our neighborhood with hatred," Mrs. Patterson declared, with the moral authority of someone who'd lived through actual historical injustice. The sound of residents sharing their stories felt like truth, finally being allowed to breathe. But the mic drop moment came when I revealed Karen's 3-year illegal board service. "Ladies and gentlemen, every decision Karen Whitmore made as HOA president was legally void," I announced, producing county deed records. "She never actually owned property in this community. The townhouse belongs to her elderly mother, which means Karen has been serving illegally for 3 years." The silence was so complete you could hear the pool pumps humming outside. State HOA law requires board members to be actual property owners. Karen's illegal service meant every fine, every violation notice, every discriminatory action could be reversed retroactively, including my original pool ban. "That means my suspension never had legal standing," I continued as Karen's attorney whispered frantically in her ear. "I was banned by someone with no authority to enforce community rules." Karen's complete meltdown was spectacular and public. "This is a conspiracy," she screamed, voice cracking with hysteria. "You're all part of an illegal takeover by criminal elements who want to destroy property values." She attempted to grab the microphone during my presentation, threatening lawsuits against everyone in this room, while security cameras documented her complete psychological collapse. Officer Martinez suggested Karen might want to contact an attorney about potential criminal charges related to embezzlement and fraudulent representation. The spontaneous applause when residents voted to remove Karen from all positions sounded like freedom bells ringing. The unanimous decision to officially commend my pool management services felt like justice finally being served at the right temperature. As Karen stormed out threatening legal revenge, she tripped over the wet floor sign I'd placed after cleaning, a final symbolic moment of her empire crashing down. The taste of victory mixed with properly balanced pool water was absolutely perfect. 6 months later, Willowbrook Commons had transformed into the community it was always meant to be. Karen faced criminal charges for embezzlement and potential civil lawsuits for systematic harassment. Her real estate license was suspended pending ethics investigations, and her agency declared bankruptcy within 3 months. The woman who'd promised to maintain standards ended up working customer service at a big box store, her empire of discrimination reduced to helping people return defective garden hoses. Bill Whitmore divorced Karen and became our most valuable board member, bringing genuine remorse and insider knowledge that helped us implement transparent financial procedures. His guilt had transformed into determined advocacy for fair governance and community healing. The immediate changes were visible everywhere you looked. Pool usage increased 300% as families felt genuinely welcome for the first time in years. Children played in crystal clear water while their parents actually talked to neighbors instead of filing violation reports. The sound of laughter replaced the clicking of Karen's threatening heels on concrete. My pool management expanded into comprehensive community maintenance at actual cost savings for residents. The new board implemented anti-discrimination policies and transparent decision-making that became a model for other HOA communities. Property values increased because of improved amenities and positive atmosphere, not artificial exclusivity. The blue-collar residents formed a trades council, ensuring fair representation in community decisions. Luis upgraded our electrical systems for energy efficiency. Janet redesigned our water management for environmental sustainability. Tommy's landscaping transformed common areas into beautiful spaces that attracted beneficial wildlife. Working together, we proved that diverse communities are stronger communities. My personal life flourished alongside our neighborhood renaissance. My relationship with my teenage daughter Sarah improved dramatically when she saw me standing up for principles instead of just accepting injustice. She started bringing friends to our community barbecues, proud to show off the pool her dad maintained professionally. "Dad, you're like a superhero," she told me after reading Amanda Bellamy's newspaper series about our fight. "You beat the bad guy with math and chemistry." The sweet taste of parental pride mixed with properly balanced pool water. My business expanded as word spread about professional integrity and community service. Other HOA communities contacted me about pool management, and I developed a reputation for fair dealing that led to contracts throughout the county. Fighting discrimination became the foundation for building something positive. But the most satisfying development was romantic. Janet and I discovered that shared battles create strong foundations for lasting relationships. Love bloomed over pipe fittings and electrical connections, proving that working-class romance is built on mutual respect and common values. The systemic impact rippled beyond our small community. State legislators introduced bills requiring HOA transparency and accountability measures after Amanda Bellamy's investigative series exposed widespread abuse. I testified at the State House about discrimination in community governance, helping craft legislation that protects residents from petty tyrants with clipboards. Our story inspired other blue-collar workers to challenge unfair treatment in their neighborhoods. Legal precedents from Karen's case made it easier to reverse discriminatory actions and hold board members accountable for abuse of authority. The ripple effects proved that individual courage can create broad social change. But our proudest achievement was establishing the Willowbrook Trades Scholarship using money saved through efficient pool operations and recovered from Karen's embezzlement. This annual fund provides $5,000 scholarships for local high school students entering skilled trades, recognizing that working with your hands requires intelligence, skill, and dedication. The community pool now hosts Career Day, showcasing blue-collar professions to kids who might otherwise think success requires a college degree and office job. We partner with technical colleges for apprenticeship programs that guarantee good jobs for graduates willing to work hard. Our HOA became a model for inclusive community governance where everyone's contributions are valued equally. The sensory memories of victory never fade. The smooth feeling of perfectly maintained pool surfaces where children learn to swim. The sweet sound of neighbors actually helping each other instead of filing complaints. the rich taste of community barbecues where diversity is celebrated, not merely tolerated. Most importantly, the clean smell of chlorinated water now represents justice served at exactly the right pH balance. Last week I received a call from another county dealing with similar HOA discrimination. Different antagonist, same pattern. Abuse of power targeting working-class residents. New adventure, but familiar mission. Proving that technical expertise and professional integrity can defeat any corrupt system. The fight for fairness never really ends, but victory tastes sweeter when shared with genuine community. So here's my challenge to you. What's your worst HOA nightmare? Have you ever dealt with a power-hungry board member who thought your honest work made you unworthy of basic respect? Drop your story in the comments below, and let's build a network of people who refuse to be pushed around by petty tyrants with designer clipboards. And if you want to see more stories about regular folks outsmarting corrupt authority figures, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Next week, we're diving into how a retired librarian took down an entire city council using nothing but parliamentary procedure and a photographic memory for municipal code violations. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply proving that intelligence, integrity, and community solidarity can triumph over any amount of artificial authority and manufactured superiority. The water's fine, and everyone's welcome to swim.
That's a wrap for today's episode on HOA Stories. If you enjoyed watching Karma in action, smash that like button, comment your thoughts, and let us know if you've dealt with HOA madness too. Subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA meltdown we post.